Welcome to the Quick Stop F1 podcast. My name is Mario, and you could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate it. Today, we've got a great Saturday show lined up for you. We've got some In Case You Missed It news, and we're going to dive a little bit into Zak Brown and the whole Alphatauri thing. But first, with me, as always, is a person who's so talented she can make soap and bubbles look cinematic. This is the 10th podcast episode this week that we've recorded, and I think she still puts up with me. She's beauty. She's grace. She's Miss United States. It is the best co-host in the world, Tasha.
Hi, Mario.
Hi, Tasha.
Not beauty and grace. Yeah.
So does that make sense why I asked you the miscongeniality question?
Yeah, I was like, well, I thought you were going to quiz me on the movie. And I was like,
no,
man.
I would never. Yeah. I would never. I don't know enough of that movie.
What's your favorite date? Oh.
What's your favorite date?
April 28th, because it's not too hot. It's not too cold. You can just wear a light jacket.
Wow. I asked you if you watched it, not if you knew it. Freaking nerd.
Like, come on.
Yeah. We have to dive into these super, super, super important topics that we're calling Driver Watch. First off, Tasha, would you please congratulate me? This is a big day for me.
Okay. Congrats.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Finally, somebody congratulates me. I now have better hair than Carlos Sainz Jr.
Oh, man.
And this is a big day for me. It's probably a bigger day for him. I don't know what he was thinking
What's
about.
going on? Yeah.
Tasha, the man cut his beautiful, beautiful hair.
What are you going through? You know what I'm saying? Like, blink twice if you need us to help you. Yeah. Right. Like that's like the hair care products and the princess, the Disney princess Nasha calls him. Like that's your whole aura. Now you could just be anybody. Like if that man walked on the street next to me, if we were in Whole Foods together, I wouldn't know who that was.
You think he shops in Whole Foods?
Maybe.
Yeah. This Carlos Sainz
with that haircut. Yeah, I was gonna say with that haircut.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. There's nobody. I don't know who this guy is.
A regular. Yeah.
I hope he comes out and says like, I cut my hair to like be faster. Cause that'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
The weight on my hair equaled 0.1 seconds in a quality lab. Can't have that. Another driver that we have to talk about is this Lewis Hamilton fella.
Yeah.
Would you jump off an airplane?
Off of an airplane
with a parachute on? On?
Yes, I would hope I would have a parachute. Yes, I would. I would. I'm scared to do it, but I feel like with most things in life, I think the anticipation of it is always the worst part, and I feel like when you actually just do it, it's not as bad. So that's what I'm hoping would happen if I attempted skydiving. And the other thing I hope happens is that I land and my parachute opens, and
no, your parachute opens and then you land. Right. And parachute opens. That would suck. That would be funny, but it would suck. I can't imagine like the first time you skydive, the process of you arriving at the place in your car. All right. So from getting out of the car to the moment that you jump off the plane,
right?
That must be the most nervous and anxious you'll ever feel, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Because that's kind of how it feels like when I fly. Just like, not that I'm scared of flying, like I enjoy flying, the act of flying, being in the air, but everything leading up to that, like the packing, being at the airport, it just like gives me so much anxiety just because it's so busy and like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you get on the flight and then you just like put your headphones in and you're just like listening to music and you're chill, having your ginger ale. Like it's a moment.
My pet peeve, and this is really specific, but in dating apps, when people put like, I love to travel, I always think nobody loves to travel. Yeah, you love going to places, you love visiting new places, but nobody likes to travel.
Yeah,
like
the traveling sucks. Yeah,
it sucks. Yeah. Like even people who are seasoned travelers, like there's an anxiety. There's like a whole like it's always full. I don't know. I like going to places. I don't like the process of travel.
Yeah. But so I think that like with skydiving, I feel like it would be the same.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah. You and I, if we don't skydive before a certain date, you and I are going to skydive. Because like I can't find anyone else who wants to skydive with me.
I'll go.
It's not as good as Lewis Hamilton skydiving with you, but hey, I'll be there.
No, he's on a whole other level. Like him and Tom Cruise just need to get together and like live out there like adrenaline junkie fantasy together, like off the plane, just by himself now. So he's no longer tandem jumping with people. Like he's just like living his best life in the air. I thought it was cool.
But it looks so sick. And his fit, just he pulls up like I pull up to like walk my dog. Just sneakers, shorts, and a t-shirt. I'm just jump off this airplane. He looks so cool. He looks so cool.
Yeah, he does.
I really want to skydive. And our third driver on our driver watch. We saw recently Kelly and Max were at a wedding. And the wedding got to the portion where the bride throws the bouquet and the people in the wedding try to catch the bouquet.
Right.
Kelly did not catch the bouquet. And one Max Verstappen was really thrilled.
Elated. I was just saying, I was like, we didn't see him celebrate that hard this season. Like he was
for any win. Yeah. This is bigger than his third world championship.
No, for real. Like that was just simply lovely. Like Kelly not catching that bouquet. Wow. That really,
Do you think Max started hearing the Dutch anthem in his head when she didn't catch it? Like another W for Max?
I don't know, but Kelly's face afterward was funny because she was like, what are you celebrating about? Like, why do you think this? And I think it's funny too, because I think he had just said somewhere that he didn't plan on proposing to her anytime soon.
Yeah.
So
they were just talking about that. They were literally
it just kind of like cracked me up. I was like, all right, this man is being real dead serious right now. He's like, we are not getting married anytime soon. Period.
I which guy at some point hasn't done some stupid joke like that and then got caught? I think I'm speaking for myself here.
Are you?
I did that once.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It was.
Do you want to unpack that, or do you want to move on?
No, I don't want to unpack that. I want to unpack the Alfa Romeo statement on Twitter. I'm gonna read it because it's hilarious. Alfa Romeo tweeted, "If you think you already know, think again. Serving January 1st, 2024." The statement reads, "It seems our recently released team name has been getting a lot of attention. While we are not ready to unveil the final result yet, we're aware of what's at stake. Rest assured, we're on a mission to unleash..." I wasn't going to laugh. "Rest assured, we're on a mission to unleash the most exciting team identity this team has ever seen. Gone are the days of the short and sweet. We are cooking up a feast." First thing I want to ask you is, I need you to make sense of gone are the days of the short and sweet. Are they implying that their name is short?
Right.
Alfa Romeo F1 Team Stake?
Right, because currently it's not short. It's definitely not short.
Are we going to see the first paragraph
I think name? So. I think they're about to give maybe a haiku. You know, maybe they got the memo from us and they were like,
maybe they actually got a haiku unlike us.
Yeah, we can
make
this poetic. Haikus. Yeah.
So there's a lot of food references. So I am thinking that they've hooked up with Guy Fieri. That is my theory.
Okay.
So I'm thinking Fieri F1. I don't know how to. You have the better one though.
Was it Guy Fieri, Flavortown F1.
Flavortown F1
steak, yeah. F1 team.
Alpha Beta Romeo's Flavortown Sauber F1 team steak.
Yeah, I was thinking like Gordon Ramsay Beef Wellington F1 team.
I would love Gordon Ramsay to be there waiting for me when I get like 19th and he tells me that my driving skills are raw, uncooked, and terrible. Right. Like I would be fine with that.
And then just like throws shit across the room.
Exactly right. Again. Exactly right. God, I'm just gonna throw out a little bit of a super random thing, but like, there's this YouTuber called Mr. Beast who's like really popular in the YouTube world, and he has a candy, a chocolate that's called Feastables.
Okay.
And if this has anything to, because they ended the thing, we're cooking up a feast, but that'd be insanity. Like that'd be insanity. He's got the money for it, but it would be insanity.
Yeah.
Do you think we're cooking up a feast because of steak? Because Team Steak? Are they making fun of themselves?
I don't know. Like that's the thing is that I feel like they're just sort of like saying shit to say it because
to say shit to be relevant,
just to like be in the conversation. And it's like,
yeah,
because I think there was like a rumor about what the name would actually be. I can't pull up the tweet for it, but it was kind of long, you know, and it was like, okay, going from Alfa Romeo to this is kind of like whatever. Why not just call yourself Sauber? Why not just call yourself Sauber Steak F1? Whatever. So yeah, this just felt like that weird thing that social media from corporate companies do where it's like, we're in on the joke, ha ha ha. And it's like, okay. It's like, this is weird energy, but all right, no one asked you for all this. Just release the name. Like, why are you teasing?
Why are you
like, what?
Imagine I would respect they come out January 1st and they say the same name that was speculated. Right. And like all of this was just, nah, guys, you got us. You figured out the name. You got us.
They're like, you guys are actually right. Just kidding. Yeah. So
I would like to see Valtteri record a Man versus Food episode. Okay. Maybe have Joe be in Diners, Dive-In, and Drive. And what is it? Diner, Drive-Ins, and Dives?
Yeah.
Have you ever the Triple D?
Yeah.
Oh man, those are the crossovers we need. With that, we are going to move on to our in case you missed it topics. We've been looking at the Twitters, we've been looking at what's been happening in F1, and we've gathered some interesting topics that we want to talk about. And later on, we'll talk about our main topic, which is related to the AlphaTauri Red Bull Zak Brown letter. But first off, Tasha, if you will, what is our first, in case you missed the topic?
So basically our first topic is about Bahrain. Their sovereign wealth fund is actually, it looks like allegedly they're going to be gaining full ownership of McLaren Group, one of the most revered names in British premium manufacturing, as part of a long-term plan to secure partnership with the global industry giant. So I thought that was kind of interesting, as, you know, we definitely already have, you know, oil teams involved throughout the sport.
Oil is deep in it.
Yeah, it's not like it's a new thing or revelation, but yeah, it is really interesting seeing, you know, the sovereign fund of an entire country with like basically full ownership of McLaren Group. So I'm interested to see what that looks like, you know, over time, like what that partnership looks like and what the plans are for that. But yeah, I don't know. Do you like have thoughts on that?
I find it interesting. Like I don't know how to say it, like the government or the state sovereign wealth fund or however, but they're the same ones who own or operate the Bahrain GP. So now I'm just interested if there's ever been like a group that owns a GP and also a team that like drives in the league. I'm surprised because McLaren has so much history being an English brand. And now changing it completely to be owned by Bahrain is interesting. That check must have been huge.
Yeah.
Also, Aramco recently was said to join McLaren. So there is a lot of movement with regards to. I'm interested because this is what's interesting to me is like oil right now has their hands on some teams with regards to being a title sponsor, right? So it looks like a progression from I'm part of a team, I'm a title sponsor, now I own the team.
Owning, yeah.
So it makes me think like, is this the playbook for oil companies from now on? Like Aramco is going to buy Mercedes one of these days. Like I'm interested in seeing like if this is a one-off or if this is going to be like a track where oil or not oil, but like a whole government basically can own a team.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
It would.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, like if the United States government owned an
F1
team or a group like Mercedes.
We pull up own Haas. Nobody.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Nobody wants that. But yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah.
To me,
what would that look like? What would that partnership look like? I guess that's kind of what I'm interested and curious to know. Yeah.
Another thing is like, there's a cost cap. So I don't, but like if we were in the times where no cost cap, then I would think this is huge for McLaren because it means that they basically have like infinite funds.
Right.
And they'd be able to like jump out with like everything they need. But I guess the cost cap will intervene with that. So I'm also interested, we should look into this later, is like, do other teams have a single shareholder like now McLaren has? Because this the government of Bahrain is officially the single shareholder for McLaren. Nobody else. But like, I don't think that's like, other teams have boards, and boards have many people, and many people representing different, and then they come together and they own something. But like, this is like straight up just them. So it gives them like creative control. I don't know. Really interesting to see what's going to happen in the next few months. We'll have to look into this more. we will look into it because it's and like we're honestly, we're not even like sure of all the repercussions and stuff like that. So we obviously need to look into it, but I don't know. Like I don't know. I really want to see, like, will it affect anything? Like, is Zak Brown still the guy that like everybody? Yeah, I think so, right?
I feel like I would assume that they would probably leave most of the infrastructure. I think they're already a partner on the team, if I'm not mistaken. So I think this is just full ownership. Well, and not even the team, McLaren Group. So I think they would leave the infrastructure in place. I think it's just more, I think, down the pipeline, like what projects and things would they be working on, and what technology would they develop?
Will they move McLaren? That would be.
I don't know.
I don't think so. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting to see like what this actually means, like how much control or how much decisions or what actually changes based on this. But I agree with you. It's super interesting. It's super interesting. The next topic that we had was on Fred Vasseur. So we have two notes. First off, we haven't really heard much at all with regards to Susie Wolff and Toto Wolff and the allegations. Our guess, like we talked about last time, was that, if it's in legal stuff, then those things don't come to light. But Vasseur basically said, to quote, he was asked if he was concerned about the rift between FIA and F1. And Vasseur said, I think all this story is quite embarrassing for the whole sport. The story started with an article in a newspaper. I don't know if a newspaper is the right word. Hell yeah, Vasseur, that's exactly right. That's not a newspaper. And I think this situation, when you're speaking to the individuals, you have to be careful about what it says.
Right.
Vasseur thought pretty similar things that we thought. The joke of making it like a 24-hour turnaround with regards to when you start to when you finish. He mentioned that as well. We talked about that during our podcast. Like, nothing gets resolved in 24 hours.
Right.
And you didn't talk to the relevant people about it. Like, so what are your thoughts on like Fred speaking up? Like, does this tell you that it's such a joke that people feel freely to speak about it? Do you think, what are your thoughts in general?
I mean, I don't think I see it as they think it's a joke. I think it's really serious. And I think that what interests me about it is that, typically a lot of the stuff happening in the background, we have no idea about. And so to see a team principal from a team not involved, this is from Ferrari. And obviously like Fred and Toto, I think, have a good relationship that has some history, but still, like, it's good to see that there's still like an actual, like, genuine alliance, I guess, on this issue, where it looks really bad for the FIA to be targeting anybody in Formula One, whether it's Toto Wolff or anybody else, Susie Wolff, and then essentially make that public, like, oh, this is very serious, we're going to investigate this, and then turn around in 24 hours and actually say, oh, they're cleared. Like, it really doesn't look good on the sport. Yeah, you didn't look into anything. But also just, it kind of feeds the narrative of like, you intended to harm the reputation. And I think if you're going to publicly accuse somebody or publicly co-sign something that accuses someone of being essentially a cheater, I think you have to really do your due diligence before you actually publicly speak out, whether it's just to say, hey, we're investigating. I think it looks like, we've rushed to some conclusion. And now that we're getting all this pushback, we're backing off of it. So yeah, I think it was a waste of time to make it public. If you're going to investigate, just investigate and then let us know what that conclusion was, not, hey, we're looking into this, because I'm sure there's many things they investigate day in and day out.
Exactly. The amount of things we don't know must be insane.
Yeah.
He also said, I think that and I quote, and I think it was the first conclusion for me that we were all able to act together. It's not very often you see that, which is to your point about there being that alliance. But in Fred Vasseur style, he ended with, even Red Bull was supported with Toto. We have to notice that.
Exactly.
It's like he said really what we were all thinking. Like,
right.
Absolutely. You see those 10 teams work together and things look fishy.
Yeah, it definitely talks a little bit to like the FIA FOM kind of rift that, the teams are all kind of in support of each other. And then the FIA is kind of its own, in its own little kind of world as well. So it just kind of this growing rift that's spilling over publicly. It just kind of looks, I don't know.
It looks really messy.
It looks very messy.
So messy. Yeah. And Fred Vasseur coming out and speaking about it makes it messier for the FIA. Makes it better for us. Makes it messier for the FIA because like we haven't talked about, not we, but like there hasn't been any evolution to this at all.
Right.
And this article was released December 17th. So it's almost like he's bringing it up when people have stopped bringing it up, or the media in general has stopped bringing it up. So it gives a strong rift between the two.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that Vasseur said that made a lot of sense. Now you tell me if this makes sense. Vasseur came out claiming that, I don't need to read it, but basically saying that they don't have a first or a primary Ferrari driver, that he claims that the two receive more than equal treatment. And do you agree? Would you call it equal?
Well, I feel like equally the team dropped the ball on them multiple times.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like equally they both had to take matters into their own hands at times when they were driving. Yeah. But I don't know, like you have, it's just like funny hearing that because like we talked about this before as well, where it's like, Charles has like this 5-year contract extension on the books. On the books. Yeah, basically, they're like, you leave whenever you're ready to leave.
Whenever you're ready, Bubba.
Whenever you want.
You're ready.
Meanwhile, Carlos is over here having an existential crisis, cutting off all his hair because he doesn't have that same job security, like.
Tasha, did he offer his hair to Fred?
I don't know.
To get the contract?
I don't know. Maybe. He's like, look, I will make you the finest hairpiece you've ever had.
And that is
like
a fine
if he
wig.
shows up in the paddock next
that would
year.
Be a fine wig.
He's like, look at the way I'm sacrificing for you. I want this seat so bad.
What more must I do?
Yeah. I feel like maybe on the strategy, yes, but team culture wise, I do feel like Charles kind of emerges as the number one driver on the team. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know how. He can say all he wants that they're treated equally, but like it gives favorite son vibes. You know what I'm saying? Like
absolutely.
And Charles is going to inherit this whole business. You need to go find another job, Carlos. Yeah.
Charles, all of this will be yours.
Everything the light touches is yours.
Everything the light touches will be yours. Carlos Sainz is in the corner like, Dad, Dad, I'm like your firstborn. What's up? No, and it's jokes, but it's true. Like Leclerc has a 5-year deal right now, and it really feels like Leclerc leaves Ferrari when he loses all his hair because he never wins. But Sainz is literally, there was an article the other day where Sainz is like, I hope I have an extension when I start the season in 2024. Like, but no, there's no preference. There's no preference at all. This is me speculating, complete speculation. Vasseur mentioned he mentions me like that they were close in points, which is absolutely true. 206 points to 200 points. Leclerc was in front. I think that's the reason why Vasseur can't say it. Like, I think Vasseur Vasseur, maybe Ferrari in general would probably prefer, like, let's say Charles and Sainz scored 400 points total, 412, 400 points, right? I honestly think Ferrari would prefer 300 for Charles and 100 for Sainz. Like, if that was the situation, then Fred Vasseur would probably be like, Charles did so well, da 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 da. But having those drivers be only 6 points apart from each other, it's like he can't really say anything, even though it's absolutely true that Charles is the preferred one.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
When you're a favorite child, you just know you're the favorite child. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you're in a family of 4?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 4.
Is there a favorite?
I'm pretty sure I'm the favorite.
Who doesn't love you?
I'm just like, so, you know.
Who doesn't love you? God, it's so annoying.
Right?
So Ferrari doesn't have preferential treatment for any of their drivers.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Absolutely not. And also FIA is silly for coming at Susie and Toto Wolff. What do you have for us next?
So from Autosport, the FIA details tighter rules on F1 right of review requests. So basically, last month, it looks like the governing body wants teams to think twice about pursuing reviews by reducing the window available to submit a request and introducing a fee, which is like wild to me. That they're
you said in the pre-show the deposit.
Yeah, you had to pay a deposit. So if you want to challenge something, you need to pay a deposit, which they don't have a number. So they're going to set the fee annually. Yeah. So whatever they feel like that number should be. And then basically, if you don't win the review, they keep the money.
Hell
but if it's overturned, they give you your money back.
We're going to dinner, bitch. Hey, no. And also, thanks for dinner.
Right. But they're hoping to deter people or teams from challenging, rules or whatever that they feel they were wronged. And I just feel like that's kind of like ethically murky to me. I don't know. Like, we're getting into some weird.
I don't understand
that. This is a weird gray area.
It is, and it's like, it's very similar to the other change they made to the rules, like Checo Badmouth. I think some stewards saying that, and then they added the thing is not like they turned, if you are whatever to it used to be, now it's like if you do anything, like you can be penalized, and now they add this on top of it. These guys cannot stand being criticized. Yeah. It doesn't matter how you criticize them. It doesn't matter if you show up and you're like, hi, I love you. I love you so much. I just want you to know that even though I love you with all of my heart and I will never stop watching you, it kind of sucks that this one thing happened. I'm so sorry that I'm saying it. Like, that's how you have to approach them for them to be like, maybe we'll consider. But unless we're just not hearing really rough or inappropriate stuff towards the stewards that we are not privy to, I think this is a insane over exaggeration of like, to me, they look silly. They're the ones who look like fools because you really are coming off like so sensitive. Like, can't tell me nothing without me being like, I can't believe you told me that. Oh my God.
Right. I think it's very,
to me, overly sensitive.
Yeah, I think very overly sensitive. And also, like, what does it say when essentially you're basically like, in order to challenge something, you need to pay me? Because I feel like the underlying text is like, or, sentiment is that what we say is right to begin with. Like the way we've ruled on this, like, was the correct thing to begin with. And I don't always think that that's the case, right? Like, who are you to challenge?
If you zoom out and just describe it like, the company or the authority, there's this authority who makes rulings, and these groups that have to adhere by the rulings, and to change a ruling, there must be an exchange of money.
Right.
I'm basically, so when I think of it like from afar, it's almost like I'm bribing your ass.
Maybe, but yeah, I guess like a bribe, or
would you please look at this? And I don't know. I thought that was their job in general. Like,
like you're already getting paid.
Isn't that your role?
Yeah.
Like, isn't your role to do this kind of shit? Now I have to pay you to like, you are so Go ahead.
No, it's crazy. And then I think about like teams like Haas, who, you had Gunther multiple times in the past season kind of criticizing, the calls and things that they've made. And then, I think they had challenged something for the standings in Austin, right? The track limits. So
Checo went over track limits like a billion times, and they wanted to review that, and they had video of it happening. Yeah.
Right. And so, but then I'm like, okay, well, what if a team like Haas, who already doesn't like have tons of money, because they're talking about raising the, fees, let's say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
If every time that you challenge, you have to pay for it, does that become a deterrent for teams who are less financially well off?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it's the money thing. So it used to be where a team like Haas that don't have many points, like if they see that they have a chance to get points through a review, just like Williams would, just like any backmarker team would,
right?
They're going to try it, and that is their right. But now you add the financial thing, and now even if I'm right, even if I'm Haas and I've got like dead to rights proof,
right?
I'm thinking like, what if they're in a bad mood today and I give them $1 million and they just say no because they're in a bad mood today,
right?
And I have all this proof, but like I just lost $1 million, and you fucked me over with like whatever I'm complaining about.
Exactly, and you also have less time to do it, so it's like 96 hours. I think, right? Yeah, there's like 96 hours to start this process, and it's like, if you have teams looking over footage or teams looking over the rule book to figure out like, how
teams had 14 days before.
Yeah. So it's just really interesting. Yeah.
It also literally like these moves just reek of like, I don't want to say overly sensitive again, but like insecurity, reeks of insecurity.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you grow as a sport if this is the situation? Like if every time that's like
the governing body is so they don't want to be criticized, and no one holds the FIA accountable. So there's nothing above them. You know what I mean? So it's like, again, going back to what we were just talking about with Fred and FIA versus FOM, like I think this rift, whatever tools are at their disposal, in FIA's case, it's rules and regulations, using it almost to like punish teams or retaliate essentially for them speaking out against FIA and some of the things that they felt have been unfair, which I feel like are fair. Like, I think Gunther saying, we should have paid stewards who, professional paid stewards. I don't think that's like saying the people who are currently doing it suck at their job. Although, there
are training opportunities.
There's some instances.
There are training opportunities.
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah. There are training opportunities.
I learned that in my adult job. Like opportunities for growth.
For growth, exactly.
There are no problems. There are only opportunities to grow.
Yes, yes. So we have some areas where that could be, utilized. And I just feel like this whole idea of like, well, every time you criticize us, we need to retaliate against that is very childish behavior, and I don't understand how that is becoming of any governing body of a sport. Like,
it makes no sense.
Yeah. And to your point, like you said, if they're not being belligerent about it, if they're not being like offensive, calling them names, threatening families, stuff like that, like I feel like saying, "Oh, the stewards are a joke," or "This is penalty's a joke," is fine. It's mild.
If there is no disrespect, which we haven't heard, I think talking about Checo, like any person who just finished a Grand Prix, and they say the stewards are a joke, that person has so much adrenaline. That person is so tired. That person wants to win so bad, and they hit you with, "Oh, the stewards are a joke." What's the problem? Like, tell me where the problem is. Like that dude, like ex-driver finishes a race and he's like, "The steward's kids must be dumb." Bro, relax.
Right.
Like, relax. But the stewards are a joke? Come on. Like, in humans, that sort of attitude is a sort of attitude that stunts any type of growth, learning, like
well, they're not trying to, so
exactly. Yeah. So like if you extrapolate that to like the FIA, the vibe is we are correct.
Yeah.
And for us to even consider being incorrect, pay me $1 million, just a milli, just a quick milli, you know? And I love that the last comment is this deposit, in which you mentioned it, but I like the last sentence. This deposit may only be returned if the right of review is upheld.
Right.
Comma, unless fairness requires otherwise. These fuckers can't define anything.
Right. Nothing straightforward.
Can be set in stone. Yeah. Nothing is a 0 or 1 here. No. Everything can be up for interpretation.
And that's the issue. Nothing is is black or white. So it's like by them doing stuff like this, it gives them that loophole
to have no accountability, which is what you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Like, why am I going to have accountability if I have a loophole for everything?
Right.
But how are you going to
preemptively covering their asses because they know that they're going to be on that bullshit? Yeah.
But how are you going to have a fair sport? Like these Abu Dhabis, these Red Bulls cheating, these accusations are always going to exist because you haven't defined the fucking rules correctly. Yeah. And it's like, do we hate that Red Bull Horner like will do anything and everything and be annoying sometimes and step on the line and sometimes go over the line? Yes. But if the FIA and governing body do create a rule book that is airtight instead of this like ambiguous crap, then there's less chance for these things to happen. Yeah. Damn, we went long on that one. That's not really, I'm so glad you brought that because it's really interesting.
That's wild. It's just a wild... We're on a wild ride with the FIA. I'm very curious to see where this ends up because I feel like I'm watching like the Marvel Civil War, like the Avengers Civil War start to play out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're starting to see the sides kind of take place and whatever. And I just feel like I don't think this is sustainable. So whatever this drama, rift, whatever you want to call it, is happening, it's very real because they're obviously coming out swinging on both sides with statements and regulation changes. When things start spilling? Yeah. And so I'm just like, where is this going? You know, is somebody going to lose their job? Are we splitting? Like, what are we doing here? Because I just feel like the sooner we come to some sort of agreement of what this is going to be, like, we can all move on and, you know, work toward a better world. Because this is getting ugly. I wonder if
Liberty Media will come out at any point and say some shit.
Maybe.
Like y'all need to get your house in order, please.
Right. I mean, I think that's where we're heading.
Absolutely. So we'll go through the other topics pretty quickly. Our next topic is you mentioned that Lawrence. There was some Mario words. There were comments with regards to Lawrence Stroll selling Aston Martin.
Yeah.
And then, long story short, he came out saying that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
He just sold a minority stake and then basically came out saying that it won't happen. His quote, and I quote, "You don't go spending hundreds of millions of pounds building the greatest new Formula One," very Donald Trump, "building the greatest new Formula One campus and hiring 400 of the greatest employees if you're about to leave the business," Stroll told the New York Times.
Oh, God.
The best F1, the best fact.
So, right. So much winning.
So much winning.
Yeah. It's infrastructure week at Aston Martin.
So much winning except for the second half of the season. So yeah, no Aston Martin being sold. And then the last one that we had is with regards to, I don't want to dive into this too much because I want us to maybe do an episode in the future. But Theo Pourchaire is a third driver to win F2 and not get a chance for F1. So it's Theo Pourchaire, Felipe Drogovic. See, they mentioned Oscar Piastri as a rookie that wasn't as a F2 winner that wasn't able to go into F1, which is technically true because after he won F2, he took a gap year and then he joined McLaren. So they include him there. But I would love us to eventually talk about like how strong is that path from F2 to F1 because it doesn't seem like it's that strong. But again, like I don't watch F2, so I don't know if these drivers are like not that skilled, maybe. And when I say not that skilled, I mean in comparison to the 20 best drivers, not in general. But I know that Drogovic is a reserve driver for Aston Martin. But I don't know. Maybe I'm incorrect, but like I was under the impression that it really was a feeder series, F2 to F1.
Right.
But maybe it's just not. Maybe it's just not anymore. Or maybe it's just not. I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's just, well, I mean, we're looking at such a limited number of seats. And I think even with the amount of talent that exists in other series, coming into F1 is just still going to be a challenge. And yeah, I feel like if you're not in it for the long haul, I know like there's been a few drivers who have just been like, test drivers for a few years, they were accomplished. So I mean, I feel like it's just hard to get somebody in and out of a seat. And then you've got all the, politics in the background. I don't think it's just as straightforward as being a good driver, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I do think that, it would be better if we saw more recycling or cycling through of drivers. But I personally also like seeing fixtures on teams because I do feel like there's something to having some experience. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting little conundrum because it's like, where do you go after that? You win a championship and you're just
and then you just
forever. Yeah,
you do it again. That's the thing. Like somebody who wins F2, I do know that there are very rare cases where somebody wins F2 and they run it back. Like very few drivers have done that. And to me, it makes a lot of sense because if you win F2, why would you risk it next year to not win F2? Because winning F2 means you're ready for F1 because you are the best in F2. But next year you run it back and then you get like sixth for whatever reason. You're only hurting your stock in that sense. But I guess that's what other series and everything are there for as well. For our main topic today, Tasha, Zak Brown recently released a letter talking about the logistics of Red Bull and Alphatauri. Red Bull and Alphatauri are the only teams right now on the grid that have the very specific relationship that they have because there are two teams who are owned by the same shareholder group. For those of you that maybe like don't agree with the Alphatauri Red Bull thing, there's a big difference between like Mercedes and McLaren and Williams relationship. There's a really big difference between Ferrari and Haas relationship in that one team winning doesn't benefit any other team like it does with Alphatauri and Red Bull. If Alphatauri wins and Red Bull loses, shareholders make money. If the vice versa happens, shareholders make money. Another thing with that is like I looked up and recently it was basically said by the shareholders that Alphatauri is competing for third and forward. Like they're third and back. Like they're not competing for first and second because that's what Red Bull is doing. Right. And then this is relevant now because it wasn't a problem before because before there was no cost cap or wind tunnel time. So if a team like Mercedes wanted to have more help or more people, they would just hire those people. Right. But now there are restrictions on money and wind tunnel time, which means that now having two teams actually means you have two entries because Red Bull can benefit from research that AlphaTauri completes, and vice versa. With all that said, we've been talking about sister teams. We've been talking about the situation for a while. Yeah. What were your thoughts when you saw the letter and your opinion specifically on the verbiage that Zak Brown used, or like, yeah, your thoughts on the actual written letter and like the content?
So one of the things I like that he said, there's a couple of things that he said. He mentioned, I'll just say, quote, it's an unhealthy situation because it impacts decisions made both on and off the track, whether it's a case of having access to more data, sharing components / personnel, or even having influence over a strategic vote. It's not in the spirit of the regulations. It's important to stand up for independence, competition, and fairness. And I'd like to see changes in the regulations to ensure that in future they stop influence spreading from one team to another through strategic alliances and especially through ownership. For me, like the vote thing stood out specifically because I do know that the Concord Agreement is going to be renewed soon. Mm-hmm. I think 2025 or something like that is when it lapses and they renegotiate it. So, having Red Bull have 2 votes essentially in any type of a situation like that. So it's, I feel like it's hard to ignore, because we've definitely seen stuff on track where we've been like, okay, that's interesting that, drivers just move out of the way for the Red Bulls. They essentially can't compete with Red Bull, right? But they can be kind of the wingmen. They can kind of help influence outcomes of races or hold people off or whatever.
We've joked about AlphaTauri kill switch. Yeah. We've joked about that kill switch.
Yeah. So I think the other thing with Zak kind of mentioning this is, with his own team, this letter was basically like a big recap of the year that they had, which was an incredible year. Didn't start great, but they ended great. And so seems like they know that they're going to be starting next year kind of in a similar position. Yeah. They think that they're going to be a strong team. And this is another team that they're going to have to fight for now. So it's not just Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston. Now it's going to be Alphatauri or whatever they end up calling themselves.
Racing Bulls or whatever.
Who, potentially have lots of upgrades and things that would see them competing. So I think it's more like, there's like a threat that he senses from having another team on the grid with, obviously influences behind the scenes, but also on the grid as well. The performance part of it matters a lot. So it's I think a little bit, sketchy to have a team that can control 2 different cars, all 4 drivers, influencing who gets to drive, what happens behind the scenes in terms of the business decisions. Yeah, it's
you gave a fantastic example in the pre-show with Yuki and the investigation.
Right.
So
yes. Yeah. Well, I think it was like Singapore, right? Where there was supposed to be they're supposed to send a representative to the FIA to fight for a penalty or whatever, and just never sent anybody. So Max didn't end up getting
that alone is an example
for
of
it, yeah.
That alone is an example of like, even if you try to convince me like this has nothing to do with Red Bull and AlphaTauri, the optics do not allow me to believe you.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's definitely deeper than optics. I think if somebody like Zak Brown this letter is, like I said, for his team, right? This is all we accomplished this year. This is what we've done. These shouting out his drivers, shouting out stuff that had to do with like IndyCar and other areas where they were racing. And then he spends like a large portion of it talking about this, like fairness and anti-competitive sort of nature of one team owning 2 teams. Like, I think it goes beyond optics. Like, obviously we see it on the surface level, but I do again think that there's some stuff happening in the background that kind of is sending off alarm bells. And he's not the only team principal who has said something either. So but he's the one who said it in a letter, I think, which is interesting.
And to reiterate what we talked about earlier, the FIA is so mediocre at creating concrete specific rules that there are no rules written for this kind of thing. And that's another thing that he was talking about in his letter. He's not saying, obviously he wouldn't say it because like the heat of saying like Red Bull needs to sell the team now would be too much. But he says, I hope that never mind. He says something to the lines of FIA needs to create stronger regulations to prevent any sort of cheating between these two teams. And it's like, they're not going to do that. FIA isn't going to do that. Like the FIA isn't going to create rules that are like we talked about. They don't create black or white rules. They don't create 0 or 1 rules. Like even if they create some sort of verbiage to like prevent this, it's not going to be open and shut like they should be. So to me, it's just not feasible or not viable. You cannot convince me that 0 nefarious things are happening from that relationship. And nefarious, I mean like cross whatever, like whether they're sharing investigations, information, data, whatever, like you cannot convince me that they're not doing something like that.
Right.
And so the cost cap made it more complicated because the cost cap means that like I could share the pot with both teams. I think the solution for that should be if you're going to keep the cost cap and we're going to keep the wind tunnel time, then let's sell the team.
Yeah, I think the team, I don't think they need a second team anyway. I mean, you have other people who are interested in buying into F1. I think it just doesn't look good. I mean, F1 as a whole has always been described as being run like a boys' club.
Yeah.
Where there's so many gentlemen's agreements and even stuff on the books can be interpreted certain ways if depending on who shakes whose hand. Like, so I think in general, Formula One needs to kind of clean that up. If that's what worked up until now, fine. But people only become more and more curious when they see stuff like this, when they watch a race and it's like, why are you sending somebody out that's with a car that's clearly, terminal? Why are we seeing stuff like that happen? And now there's a safety car that benefits the sister team. No matter how you try to like spin it as, these are conspiracy theories and these are lie, whatever, you're looking at what you're looking at, you know what I mean? So it's like people are naturally going to come to certain conclusions based off of the fact of like, this is what we're seeing and this is what we know on the surface level, right? Of what's happening behind the scenes. And you have to imagine it's so much more worse than what we're seeing on the surface level, right? So it's like, I don't buy for 1 second that there's nothing being shared between the two teams. And with the cost cap, I think, again, Zak Brown kind of called it out for what it is. He called it cheating. And I'm like, for me, I'm like, first of all, shout out to Zak Brown. Like he's the one guy I feel like who says plainly what everybody's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like there's nothing wrong with calling a spade, especially in a competitive sport. You can't be nice about stuff when your competitors have a clear advantage. And so in F1, obviously we talk all the time, like they do anything to win. So another team having a second team, if you really believe that there's nothing going on that would benefit them in one flow direction or the other, it's like, I think you're being naive, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like you can't, so we might not know the nitty gritty details, but I think we all can like use our thinking caps a little bit and assume a lot of what's happening is happening. Yeah.
All that, and the new CEO for AlphaTauri is Peter Bayer, who worked on regulations and worked in F1 as an executive director. So
he also worked in the interest Batman.
I'm saying he worked as an F1 executive director and had a role in the FIA. Right. This is the new CEO of AlphaTauri. And now the FIA is going to create rules against AlphaTauri? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. There are regulations on how many parts a team, not just how many, which parts a team can purchase from another team. Those are the rules that apply to McLaren, to Mercedes, McLaren, Williams, to Haas and Ferrari. But there are no rules and regulations or checks to stuff like R&D and data sharing. So if it happens, it happens. That's crazy. That's crazy. It can just happen. Yeah. What? The AlphaTauri looks like the RB19? No, that's crazy. Right. Coincidence.
Just a big coincidence. Yeah.
AlphaTauri, and this is not. Most teams in F1 are located in the UK. AlphaTauri has been located in Faenza, Italy, for basically all its history with Minardi. And now they're starting to move closer to not closer to the UK part of the business. So it looks like most of the business is going to be in the UK, and then they're going to keep a small office in Italy. Right. And so people are interested in this because yes, most teams are in the UK, but if AlphaTauri and Red Bull had to share anything between them, you would have to. A plane is required.
Easier. Yeah,
like a plane was always required. Now they're a 2-hour drive away from each other. So, if you look at it from but all F1 teams are in the UK, then cool. Okay. But them being closer and making it easier to share parts and data, optics, kind of bad.
Yeah.
Kind of bad. And then you have the FIA saying I don't even know where they landed on, but I think they landed on we call them before we check on them for teams. And there's no surprise checks in the factories or anything. And that's crazy. That's crazy.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
That when the FIA does random investigations into the teams, it's like they'll show up at the factory and they'll check a list of things that have to be checked. And I'm honestly not 100% sure because I thought that they said that we were going to drop in, but we called them before. And I think that's where they landed was that they called them before they go check anything. Which is what do you mean? What do you mean you call them to check? What do you mean? Not only call them to check up, they say exactly what they're going to go check. This is so bad.
It's so bogus.
Bad. It's bogus. Just write some rules, guys. Stop being like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess we've talked about just sell the team. Andretti wants to move in. We've talked about the value a team adds to the grid. And I think we've landed on AlphaTauri doesn't really add much value. So just sell it to someone else. Have it be repped by someone else. I think any other sport where there's only one team that owns another team and nobody else does, I think that would be fixed pretty quickly. I just don't see talk about baseball, basketball, anything two teams that are owned by the same people competing in the same sport for the same prize.
Wouldn't fly. Yeah.
It wouldn't fly. Yeah. Imagine watching a baseball or a basketball game where Team X and Team Y are against each other and they're owned by the same people, but Team X really has to win for whatever. There's no way leagues would allow that shit because it's a recipe for conflicts of interest at the least.
At the very least.
So I don't know why F1 does it. I don't know why F1 is cool with it. And again, it used to be okay. It used to not be a problem because there wasn't a cost cap and there wasn't wind tunnel time specifications. So it used to not be a problem, but it's a problem now. And I don't know. Next year is forming. No, go ahead.
I mean, I was going to say, to your point, next year is definitely, they're one of the teams that, I'm very interested to see what happens there. You have Yuki, you have Danny Ricciardo, and then you've got this, let's just call it RB19 reincarnated type of car that they're supposed to be getting. And as much as obviously I look at this and I'm just this is so shady and sketchy. I'm also just how much are they actually going to get away with? Is their team going to just suddenly jump up and again, be kind of competing with the McLarens, the Mercedes?
Could you imagine?
And if Zak Brown feels like this now, or if other team principals feel like this now, because at the end of last year, the big thing was, how are they bringing this many updates within a cost cap?
6 floors.
AMUS actually just put out an article about this kind of topic where it's team principals are really concerned, but they had mentioned at 18 of the 22 Grand Prix, Red Bull's sister team showed up with new parts 8 times to such an extent that one could almost have spoken of a B, C, or D spec. The upgrade campaign resulted in a total of 65 detail changes. The subfloor alone was changed 6 times. That wasn't a further development, but a completely new floor 6 times, the competition stated based on photos. The rear wing was changed 9 times. The front wing was changed 5 times. Interventions were even made on the underside of the chassis in the front axle area. So basically, this car, throughout the season, was just like completely like changed, upgraded. And we're in a cost cap era. So people, of course, are like, how are you changing your floor 6 times? You know, how are you able to afford this much development in a season, really the second half of the season, to be honest? And it's just like, it just raises so many questions and so many like alarm bells of what are we dealing with? So I'm curious, really, truly, to see what they do next year. Does the car, is it competitive? Do they just push it? Like, do they just say, fuck it, let's just make the best AlphaTauri, I guess it would be the AT05 that we can. And
damn,
just go,
girl, how'd you know it was the AT05?
because we're on the AT04.
I didn't know we were on the AT04.
Okay. I like the names of the car. I think that's like so cool. That's how they name the cars. But yeah, so it's just like if we have 2 really competent drivers, we have basically a Red Bull next year. What are we doing? Like, what's this going to look like for everybody else? And they're not going to be competing directly with Red Bull.
Not allowed.
So that's really, I think, where this is coming from. If I was a competitor, I would feel exactly. I'm surprised, I should say, that more team principals are not actually speaking out about this the way that Zak Brown is. You know, like, when do we start pushing the issue a little bit more? Yeah.
So I looked up this article, basically talking about AlphaTauri's upgrades and stuff, and the article says, or this part, which I found very interesting, to literally the point that you just spoke on. AlphaTauri has taken large steps forward in the final third of the 2023 season, with gradual floor updates being compounded by taking Red Bull's RB19 rear suspension from Singapore onwards rather than its own design, improving the AT04 stability. They took a thing from Red Bull without any research or anything on their part. So they didn't have to pay for that research. They didn't have to pay for the man hours. They didn't have to do any of that. They went to Red Bull, they grabbed the thing, and it made them better. So like, that was last year. Now in this off season, they're not going to do that. They are not going to grab Red Bull Red Bull R&D. They are not going to grab RB19 parts, even though it was the best car ever. Like, shut the fuck up. I don't believe you.
It's crazy. And I think Horner, there was a quote that he said somewhere that was like, he anticipates this next season, there's going to be a bunch of RB19 clones.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, motherfuckers.
Yours.
Namely, yours.
Yours. You're fucking clone. Like, what the fuck?
I was like, this man is so audacious because he'll say stuff like that with a straight face.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's so impressive that he can do
knowing that like he himself runs 2 teams and will literally be cloning the RB19. Like, what are you talking about? That sounds like projection to me. What are you doing?
That's exactly what it is.
Straight up projecting on people. Yeah. Crazy.
We're gonna have, bro, it's you. You're gonna have 2 of them. What are you doing?
Like what?
So that's something that McLaren can't do with Mercedes. That's something Williams can't do with Mercedes. Something Haas can't do with Ferrari. They can't just say, "Fuck it, we're just gonna grab that piece you have there." You can't do that. And so that is a huge benefit with regards to money, the time that your team is taking on research, like whether an upgrade is going to work or not is such a big deal because you can spend X amount of time and money on it. And then it's like, we wasted this money or this was so clutch, but like, I'll circumvent that. I'll just see what Big Brother is doing over there. And that's it. Yeah. Now we're closer together geographically. So like, what if a power unit suddenly finds itself in the AlphaTauri offices from the Red Bull offices? Like,
I would be curious. Yeah. I would be curious what the process is, what they say their process is for keeping everything
like what
separate.
Actually goes into. Yeah.
Like, how do we actually make sure that this is Team A is separate from Team B?
We don't.
We know they don't, but because I did read that they were saying like, that the FIA looks into them more strictly than teams who are just like one-off teams.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, knowing how everybody rolls, like, I don't believe that, obviously, because I just think that it's all bullshit. Like, if you're saying to me that you look at these two teams and you're like, we enforce things more strictly between them, then how do we get what you said, where we're taking parts off the RB19 in the current season that we're in to upgrade the car? Like, that doesn't sound, so either somebody's not coming through with their clipboard like y'all said they are, or these rules or the stringency doesn't actually exist. But I would be curious to see what on paper what it's actually supposed to look like. But that requires transparency, and
and even then, like, I'd be surprised.
We don't really do that around here. Yeah.
No, not in this car. But it surprised. It wouldn't surprise me that if they come out with like, not come out, but like if they showed it to us, it'd be more of this loose, open, ambiguous verbiage, where it's like there is no definite punishment, no definite rule written anywhere. Like, it's so unserious. Oh my God.
Very unserious.
The more we've talked about it during this block, like, I've literally come up with new things, like talking about
more
it
questions,
as
right? Like,
exactly. Like talking about it as baseball or basketball or like, it makes, how would you have two teams competing for the same thing, owned by the same people?
And then it's like, to your point earlier, like, of value. Like, I'm looking at this from, okay, Formula One is becoming just huge.
Yeah.
We're growing the sport. You got 10 teams, but really 9 teams. What does that look like? I mean, obviously people are still investing, people are still interested, but I'm like, over time, when this starts to become like more of a bigger issue that is constantly pressed on, what does it start to look like, when you've got 2 teams owned by one owner? How does that bring value? Because people are going to start to ask those questions, because it doesn't happen in any other sport. So then it's like, oh, this is interesting. Is this unique to Formula One? Yes. Yep. Then it's like, okay, well, why would I watch this? Because you have 2 teams able to kind of piggyback and help each other, when other teams
have examples ready.
One team
of times where it's like very convenient for Alphatauri to something happen for Red Bull. Like, we have examples of that.
Right. We need a little safety car triggered. Like, oh, good thing we've got 2 other people that we can kind of sacrifice their races to do this. So I don't know. It's just like, for value purposes. And obviously the other thing is that they cannot compete with Red Bull. So you're not going to really see a Danny Ricciardo v Max Verstappen battle or whatever, because that's going to slow him down. We can't have that. He got to build a gap, So it's like, that to me as a viewer it cheapens the sport. So the perception that, 2 teams are able to do that, it definitely makes it feel, sorry to say, like cheating. It just does. And I think, like, I'm not the only person who would feel like that. And especially new fans, people coming in who don't see this situation really in any other sport that they follow, to come across it in this, it is jarring. Like, it is jarring. And then next year when they're called the Racing Bulls or whatever the hell, like, it just becomes closer and closer and closer. And
but then you become Racing Bulls, which is something like Red Bull. But then that is your brand change to get further away from Red Bull. It's calling yourself a Racing Bulls. And to me, it's like, to your point of like value, it's like, if Red Bull and AlphaTauri which they are owned by the same shareholders, wouldn't it be more convenient for F1 to have new shareholders for this Andretti team, for example? Wouldn't that literally be more valuable and bring more diversity? Just to,
you would think.
You would think, because like these, like, I don't know. There's so many. It sucks because the more you and I talk about it, you and I are very like matter of fact, or like we look at the scope of things, and you look at this, and the more you look at it and the more you talk about it, you don't end up with more answers. You don't end up with like, okay, it's cool. I get it now. Hell no, I don't get it now.
I have fucking questions now.
I don't get it at all.
But mainly, my main question is like, how are people just letting them get away with this? So again, it leads me back to what's happening between their team and the FIA.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to follow some breadcrumbs here, and I'm trying to understand how you can get away with this without somebody in a governing body looking in the other direction. So that's all I'm saying.
100%.
Unless they just got it like that, and people are like, do whatever they say. Like, I mean, but
I don't like. you know it's going to happen, but I hate that F1 is so reactionary that it's almost like until the standings aren't RB, RB, AT, AT, I don't think anybody else will race hell. Like, I don't think anybody else is going to come out with a Zak Brown letter until like we're at a point where we're suffering the consequences and not preemptively looking at like at what can happen.
I give it like half a season.
If AlphaTauri sucks, everybody forgets about it.
We'll see.
AlphaTauri doesn't suck, we're going to be talking about this again.
Yeah. I mean, I just think Danny in a car that's going to be much better developed, Yuki in a better developed car, I think they're going to be problems for people. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
So yeah, I give it like half a season, I think. I'm curious to see how the first part of the season plays out from a lot of different standpoints, but yeah, specifically that one.
I know Danny Rick, when he was doing his comeback where he did that test with Red Bull to see if he was going to come back, he drove the RB19 and he said he was like very close to Max's pole position time in that same circuit. Like, if that's true, then what you said with regards to like Yuki and Danny being a problem, like how does that, like that will happen?
Right.
Like, because they're going to have a very close to RB19.
Yeah.
Fun times. If I blame the FIA with AlphaTauri and Red Bull, if I blame them for cheating, it's the FIA's fault for being like, the FIA created the conditions for me to be able to call you a cheater. If you never cheat and I called you a cheat, then you'd be like, Mario, you're wrong. Right. But like with this situation being as it is, the FIA can tell us, no, we check everything. You're wrong. And we'd be like, no, I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all.
But that's the benefit of not having anybody to scrutinize you as the governing body. So, you know, crazy shit can go on and you can allow it. I think it would be a weird hill for anybody to die on, which is why, again, I always say, like, you know, somebody knows something. I will be very curious if there's ever whistleblowers in this sport. Money stops flowing, who starts talking kind of thing. Because I just don't feel like this is something that you just do for funsy. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's an exchange of something. And but yeah, that's always been my biggest question. Like, everything you read, you're like, okay, so if you can do this, who's allowing that to happen? And if they're allowing that to happen, why is that possible? Do you know what I'm saying? What would make me allow somebody to do something like that? Like, what would be so?
You have to receive something. There has to be compensation.
That's where I start to go with my questions. It's never like I read an article and I'm like, okay, that was fun. You know, store that, file that away for later. Now I'm like, okay, what's really happening? What's really going on? So, yeah.
Top it all off with
super sleuth.
AlphaTauri hiring the ex F1 ex FIA guy. Like, there's so many questions.
Yeah. But then also like Christian Horner being in charge of both teams really and Marco. So like, even though
by the way,
AT have team principals,
Marco is listed as an official consultant for both teams.
Right. So it's like, even though there's team principals for that team, they're not really making decisions for that team. So I feel like that's the other question I have is like, if you know in the background that it's this big incestuous whatever situation on the surface, why would you not make it at least appear legit? Let Jean Todt make decisions for the drivers for the team, or whoever's going to be the team principal make those decisions on the surface level. Make it at least seem like it's his idea, right? Because like when he's saying something opposite to you, Marco, and you, Horner, like, and he's the guy who's supposed to be running the team, you know?
And
like,
then you see the things that Horner and Marco are saying happen.
Yeah. So it's just like, to me, I'm like that again, I'm just like, why not make it look legitimate? Even if it's not on the books, why not make it look legitimate to people watching at home? Why you gotta do your crimes in 4K? I don't get it. It's stupid.
I don't get it. We gotta sell that team already. For what it's worth, I read the Peter Bayer interview and stuff, and he said that the shareholders guaranteed that they won't sell. Okay. So there's that. Okay. I think we've got into. You know? I think we've got into an interesting. We did arrive at an interesting place, which is the FIA the system made this possible.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I can't be mad at Horner, AlphaTauri, or Red Bull without being mad at the FIA for not clearly stating in their guidelines that this is a no-go.
I mean, or that they're all like complicit in it. I don't think it's either or. Yeah. I think the system exists for their benefit. And I mean, the last 2 seasons alone.
Pretty beneficial.
Kind of, make that apparent. So, I don't think it's blame FIA or blame Red Bull or what. I think it's just all. But again, it's this whole boys club thing. I think all of the whole thing just needs to be reevaluated. Like, if that's what y'all do, like, I guess for me, it's just like, if that's what y'all do in your time, like, if that's truly how you want to run the sport, fine. But don't try to make it seem like it's this competitive thing then, right? Like, don't try to make it seem like, everybody's really competing on a level playing
equal
field.
Level.
If in the back end, it's just going to be a bunch of like shady, deals done over drinks and stuff, like, or at the golf course. Like, if that's really what's happening, then just like own that and don't try to make it seem like it's an actual sport, because other sports don't have this problem. And I'm sure shady shit goes on behind the scenes there as well. But on the surface level, we don't really see that, Like, I have not dug this much into,
A Zak Brown letter criticizing this, like, being a new person in the sport, and you see someone as prominent as Zak Brown in the sport, like, mention this thing, then you're immediately jarred at, like, wait, so like this team has 4 cars and these other teams have 2 cars, like,
right?
Why is that a thing? It's such an easy thing to fix. It's such an easy thing to fix. Any last comments on AlphaTauri and Red Bull?
No,
it's super interesting. I dove into this thing and I looked for all info and I looked at the history of AlphaTauri and they haven't been better than Red Bull ever. And I don't think that's something that is feasible while being with Red Bull. I think I would die for the first 3 races of the season to AlphaTauri be first and second and see what Red Bull does. Like, I would die.
I don't think that would happen.
Red Bull would shoot the tires with a nail gun and be like, we can do that. It's our team. They can't be mad. Same team.
All right.
Nah, it doesn't make sense. And it's a really bad look, unserious look with the sport. Can't be convinced of no cheating as long as that exists. You have like, that has to be dissolved for me to be like, all right, no more cheating. There's probably going to be cheating.
Burden of proof is on them. Like, we need to see some proof.
I'm saying, don't make it. Yeah, whatever. If you're still here listening, thank you so much. Remember, if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave those 5 stars and the reviews and the haikus. If you are on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Leave your comment. Let us know what you think about this AlphaTauri Red Bull situation. Let us know what you thought about the Zak Brown letter. Let us know what else. What you thought about Lewis Hamilton's package, I guess. Tasha and I will be back very soon. We've got some things cooking, just like Alfa Romeo. But with that, I've been Mario. You can find me at Twitter and Instagram, Mario_APM. Tasha, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Tasha on Twitter and on Instagram. And
this was fun
as well. Yeah.
I do not look forward to speaking about this shit when the season starts, but we probably will. But we probably will. Yeah, we did. Like, there's definitely gonna be something.
There's gonna be some problems next year. Yeah.
Yeah. When does this come out? This comes out. Oh yeah. Okay. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. Above everything, be safe and enjoy yourself, and don't drink and drive. And
oh my God, very important. Yeah.
Like, don't do Uber, that. Like, Ubers are.
Be careful.
Just be careful and stay safe. Have fun with your family. Thank you to everybody. Tasha, take us away.
All of that, I co-sign. Merry Christmas. Yeah. Thanks as always for listening. And no matter what happens in life, remember, keep it on the black stuff.
Bye.
Look, mate, if you've got this far, clearly you like what we do. So here's a link to subscribe to the Quickstop F1 family. Give that a click. And here's another link to some more cool on our channel. Sorry, cool stuff. And remember, no matter what happens, keep it on the black stuff. Click the stuff. Click the links. Click the links. Click the links. There. They're there.